Welcome to B2B Marketing Unlocked, the podcast that helps CEOs, business leaders, and marketing executives unlock brand growth. In each episode, I bring on industry experts to share their journeys, lessons learned, and the marketing secrets that drive results, while also sharing my own strategies along the way. I'm your host, Jony Mansilla, founder of Jony Studios, where we help businesses create profitable podcasts and content that drive growth. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to another episode of B2B Marketing Unlocked. Today we have Sonya Hansen. She's the Vice President of Revenue Marketing at FloQast. Sonya, hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time. So I want to jump right in and ask you, how did you get into B2B marketing?
Yeah, it's actually an interesting story. I knew I wanted to go into marketing when I was 16. I joined a club in high school called DECA, which people may or may not know. And you pick an area. Mine was sports and entertainment marketing. And you compete with other students in the district and the state and internationally. So you'd get a business scenario in your particular area. You have 10 minutes to prep and then you go in front of a judge. And you're basically trying to convince them to buy whatever you're selling or accept whatever, make good for an HR problem that you are being given. And I fell in love with the quick-witted, creative nature of it. And that experience made me want to go into marketing. So I majored in marketing and management in college. My first job was in communications at a nonprofit. And then a friend connected me to my first true B2B marketing role. And I was lucky enough to land a position at a company. I was number 73 in the business, and the spark was lit. I was like B2B marketing forever. So really, I think B2B marketing is this great unique blend of art and science, and equal parts of you do what's tried and true, but then you have this great creativity that you can use and employ.
It's funny you mentioned that because I actually was part of DECA in high school as well.
Were you? Okay. Yeah.
And that did spark some, I don't know if this happened to you, but I would always get so nervous before entering the room because you don't have that much time, right?
Oh, yeah.
How did you feel under that pressure?
Yeah, I mean, your hands are shaking, especially in high school, right? Where you have no experience going in front of adults and trying to convince them of anything. But I think the scenarios were always interesting, and you were allowed to just be so creative and come up with whatever solution that you thought was best. And I would say that definitely helped me in the future in terms of my interview skills and my ability to kind of think on my feet. So all the nerve-wracking, high school experiences were worth it, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was such a great program too, because it exposes you really early on into kind of a bit more of that business world. It's kind of set up almost like a conference too, which is really cool. You're meeting other people from different schools and things like that, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I was lucky enough I focused on sports and entertainment marketing, but ultimately I competed in a number of areas, and I went to nationals, and that was just a whole different experience where there's thousands of students preparing in the same room. And you get 10 minutes, the timer's up, and you just have to go in and wing it. So pretty fun.
That is amazing. No, I don't think I ever made it to the next level, but I remember just going to that first one. It was super fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Right on. And tell me about FloQast. What do you guys do, and how do you guys help others?
Yeah, so at FloQast, we're really in the business of helping accountants and finance teams and compliance teams now do their work in a better way, right? Elevate their roles and close the books efficiently. They are oftentimes the back office people. And so our job and what we provide is an AI accounting transformation platform that really helps them move from the data wranglers and the folks who are doing kind of these mundane data entry tasks to strategic powerhouses that have the data at their fingertips and can really help the business make sure that it's mitigating risk, it's closing its books effectively, and really able to report to the market what they're doing. And so we're kind of responsible for pulling all of those checklist items for accountants together and making sure that they're able to manage it well.
Right on. That sounds like a useful tool for sure.
Yeah.
And what does your current marketing team look like?
So currently our marketing team at FloQast is about 50 marketers globally. And our company will exit the year at probably 1,000 employees. So 800-ish right now. And we cover a wide range in marketing, from communications and brand to product marketing and campaign activation. So my team specifically is made up of about 15 folks that cover 3 areas. The first is demand generation. So everything you think about how somebody would click on something and find FloQast, the webinars, advertising, lifecycle marketing. And then I have another kind of prong of my team is web and digital. So our global web properties, how do we show up? How are we using AI tools to help conversion on our website? And then finally, strategic events and alliances marketing. So we own all the field alignment. So how are we showing up in territory with our sales teams? Partner marketing, how are we selling to, with, and through our partners? And then also like our big flagship events. Take Control is our annual kind of virtual user conference. And we own things like that too.
Nice. Right on. That's a pretty well-sized team for sure.
Yeah.
And
we're lucky.
yeah. What is your current target market, would you say? Like, who are the people you're trying to reach if you had to pick like an ideal customer?
So our ideal customer is probably, we're selling into accounting and finance teams primarily. So the controller at the organization is really who we care about. We want to talk to them first and foremost because they're the people kind of like at the helm, and they're the ones dealing with both kind of like anything that's coming downstream from leadership and anything that's coming upstream from the staff accountants and teams. And we're really, we sell to all shapes and sizes of companies, from, a small business to the enterprise. But where our sweet spot is probably, that mid-market to enterprise company. And we continue to move up market with a lot of our product innovations and really working with them on like complex enterprise use cases. So rethinking how they think about their accounting function and using AI to drive that faster. So, AI is the buzzword. We're also using that buzzword and trying to stand out in the sea of, AI noise. But ultimately, we're targeting the accounting and finance teams.
Right on. And what's currently working to access them? Like, what's working for you guys to drive that pipeline and get really hot leads?
Yeah. So I think driving pipeline always starts with telling the right story and making sure that we deeply understand our audience. So, you may call that brand awareness, but I really think it is just one and the same. The pipeline is driven by a number of what we would call like tactics, but really it's all starting with that narrative and that strategic story that we're telling. So I always tell leadership for pipeline, there's no magic bullet. And with pipeline generation, you're really just focused on the like small group of people who are in market at that time, right? So, we're really thinking about how we streamline how our buyers can get to what they want as quickly as possible. So over the past year, we've looked at every single part of our buyer's journey, and we want to reduce the time between each step. So for example, we put a meeting booker on our site where they can directly go on our site and just pick a time that's open that they want to meet with one of our product experts. That in and of itself is not rocket science, but we were able to reduce the time to meeting from 17 days to 5 days.
Wow.
And we are able to then also work with our BDR team to streamline the handoffs between each of those steps. And so what I think is really working from a pipe gen perspective is the action of streamlining those steps. We all hear the stat of, the first person to get to the prospect is usually the one they pick. And so we really want to make sure that when our buyers are actually looking for a solution, not only do they remember us and they've heard our story before and they know we are their type of people, but they also know that they can get to us quickly and we're going to help them and we're going to give them the answers they need right away.
That's a really great perspective, because yeah, that's really true, right? The faster you can get to a call, to that next step in a smooth way, like the prospect's really going to feel that,
Right. Exactly.
And I feel like even in my own sense, like with our company, we noticed sometimes we would get chosen just because we were more responsive, right?
Yeah.
Or we had a bit of a better process in that beginning stages, because that first contact with the prospect, it really shows you how your company's run, and it can kind of leave a great perception or a not so good one. So it's good you guys are kind of like optimizing that.
Yeah, like any marketer's worst nightmare is being told that like, oh, we just didn't get back to them fast enough and they went with someone else, right? Like,
yep, I know
worst
that feeling.
nightmare. I'm like, oh my gosh, we wasted so much money on that touch. So yeah, we want to avoid that at all costs.
Nice. And so you said you guys are improving that, your software as a service, right?
Yes.
Is there leads that just go directly right into buying without meeting with someone, or have you found usually it's really important for someone to give a demo or?
Yeah, so we have talked about doing a self-service model. Our product is not quite easy to buy just off the shelf. And so we do really take the time to learn what are they looking for, what do they need, and we create like a custom package for each person or each company. We don't have necessarily, oh, you're a company of this size, you get this package. We're very much tailoring to what they're telling us they need. And we're really working to not charge them for things they're not going to use. And so it does come down to building a relationship with the person first and foremost and making sure we understand what they need. So our sales team does a really great job of that. And they're not trying to meet just to meet, but they want to make sure that, of all the use cases that our solution can offer, remedies for, they're really learning what that company needs. And they're setting also kind of a state, like a maturity cycle for that company of like, hey, you might start here with FloQast today, but in 6 months, you may decide that you want to add X piece because you're ready to solve this new XYZ problem. Or you may decide that you're ready to add an AI agent to automate that piece of the work for you so that you don't have to do that piece and you're just reviewing that piece. So they are really taking the time to dig in with the customer.
Nice. And where's your majority of your traffic coming from? Do you guys focus on organic or paid, or talk me through that?
Yeah. If anyone says they have one channel, I would love to talk to them.
So true.
It's like always boiling the ocean a little bit. But I think that we lean on the data to tell us what works at each stage of the journey. So, at the very kind of what we would call top of the funnel, in marketing speak, we're using organic, we're using paid, we're using a lot of earned media and, the right to tell our story in certain channels. I would say mid-funnel for us, what's really working right now are like more interactive type webinars where we use a platform called Goldcast, and it allows us to do so many things with our webinars that make them much more engaging for the buyer. And it's not just like they're just watching us talk. It's very much like interact in the poll questions, interact in the chat, interact in XYZ ways. So webinars are working really well. And we are also doing a version of webinars called Deminars that are demo webinars, where we're really focusing on showing our product and not telling them about our product. So we have different types of webinars based on where people are in the journey. So there might be a thought leadership webinar where we're really teaching them like the theory behind something. And then there's more of like a middle of funnel deminar where they're actually coming in and seeing the product in action and they're able to ask questions. And we find that is so nice for our buyers because we actually have an audience that is not quick to meet unless they are in market. So we really try to give them a way to see the product without committing to that one-to-one meeting. And we're seeing that work really well.
Nice. And so you said webinars. Talk about frequency. Do you guys do it like once a month or weekly? How does that
We're
work?
doubling our webinar output this year.
Yeah.
So we went, last year we were probably doing one webinar every 6 to 8 weeks. This year we're doing one webinar a month and one deminar a month. So they're going to have an option, people have an option to go to both, of course, but if they are further along in their journey with us and they want to just see the demo, we're focusing on different pieces of our product in each of those seminars. So, when all is said and done, we'll run probably 24 to 30 webinars this year.
Wow, right on. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So for those webinars, let's say you have a webinar coming up. How do you get people to join? Like, are you sending emails to your list? Are you running paid on certain platforms like LinkedIn? How do you get people to actually show up to a webinar?
Yeah. So our webinars are driven by a couple of the things you mentioned and a couple others. So the first one is email, right? We're always going to our database and we segment our database. So not everyone gets every webinar invite, right? You're not going to get 30 webinar invitations. We'll drive them crazy. And then we do use LinkedIn. We use a lot of thought leadership ads. So our CEO or our VP of compliance or somebody who's related to kind of the topic of the webinar will post, and then we boost that post. So rather than it coming from the FloQast brand, it's coming from a person, which tends to work better. And then we're also going to third-party channels to drive some of our webinar traffic. So not necessarily content syndication, but more along the lines of a third-party publication that is in the accounting space and will, pay to send an email to their database or put ads on their site to let people know that the webinar is available. We're in a lucky space because accountants and any CPA, any kind of finance professional has to have continuing education credits. And so we can provide those credits for them for free. And then they are much more eager to come to our webinars.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Like you're kind of tying that in.
Yeah.
Right on. And what tools and workflows do you guys rely on a day-to-day?
Oh, goodness. A lot of tools and workflows, but I would say, we're managing all of our tactical work in Asana.
Okay.
We have automations set up for our team where we can kind of launch, say, a webinar, since we were talking about that. We can launch like a webinar workflow in Asana and it automates the creation of some of the tickets that we need so that no one person is in there just like painstakingly putting each task in because they're very repeatable. We know what they are. And so we're automating those things.
Nice.
The other tool, we use Gemini internally. We're Google Shop, so we use Gemini. We use it for a lot of what I would call first drafts. We don't necessarily lean on AI to create our content for us, but if we can train it on our narrative, we can coach it to give us the outputs kind of that we're looking for. We can use it to get to a really good first draft in some areas that allows us to like then put the human on it as a reviewer, as opposed to sitting there and, writing an email for 4 hours and trying to wordsmith everything. It gives you kind of a starting point and cuts that time in half. So we're doing that a lot. I think a lot of teams are exploring that. And then, we use the standard tools for marketing automation. Well, standard, I guess, but we're using marketing automation. We use HubSpot right now. We're using Salesforce. We are implementing Caliber Mind, which is a tool that allows us to look at attribution from a number of different areas or different models. So we can look at last touch, we can look at first touch, we can look at kind of a chain-based model where it's giving each touch attribution. And that way we can look at kind of triangulate that data to make better decisions. So we're just getting started with that, but we're excited about it.
Wow, that sounds really cool. Because yeah, the more data you have like on each touch point, that can be really valuable on like,
Yeah.
okay, this is working. Let's put more investment in this area, right?
Exactly. Well, and I think the hard thing, right? Every marketing leader, at least I always ask the question, like, if I had another dollar, where would I put it? And I want to be able to answer that question in a much better way. I think we have a lot of data now that tells us what works to push someone over the edge to a qualified lead or, someone that sales should talk to. But what we really want to get to is, what's the journey that someone should take to get them to a point where they're ready to talk to sales? Like, how many touches do they actually need? Do they is it video? Is it short form content? Is it white papers? Like, we can't always tell that from a Salesforce campaign, right? It's like
Mhm.
you're looking at one touch in Salesforce. So Caliber Mind, the models that we can look at allow us to get much smarter about how we spread our dollars out.
Right on. And do you have a campaign that comes to mind of a campaign that did really well or that was successful? It can be in any area.
Yeah. I think that the one that comes to mind, because it just really killed it in terms of source pipeline, is Take Control, which is I mentioned it earlier, annual virtual user conference. It is virtual, so we call it a virtual event because it is not just like a normal webinar. It is 2 half days. We had a DJ come in
Wow.
and like do the breaks for us, and people were all about DJ Graffiti. He's really great. Look him up on Instagram. And internally we call Take Control our Super Bowl. So, externally it's FloQast annual conference. And it's a time where like we can really bring our entire ecosystem together. So everyone from customers and prospects to our investors to market leaders, like they're sharing their knowledge. And it's a time where we can invest in the growth of accounting and finance teams and help them kind of in their journey. So Take Control last year, we overhauled it. In the past, it had been, there's some sessions. We're going to just run the sessions. People attend them. They get their continuing education credits and we call it a day.
Mhm.
Last year, we really fought to make it an innovative, like, event where people wanted to be and stay. We wanted people to attend more than one session. We wanted them to be active in the chat. We didn't want them to be passive listeners. We really wanted them to be engaged, which can be really hard for a virtual event. But like I said, we rethought it. So we actually rented a studio. We recorded all of our content on stage in a studio. We professionally edited it. We put music tracks behind it. We had our DJ. We had fun breaks where like our internal video team actually came up with like fun skits that we would record and then play during the
Oh,
breaks.
wow.
So we were really trying to like go over the top with it a little bit. And it was a big bet because we had never done it before. And like our internal teams had never seen this before. And so luckily it paid off, right? Like that was good for us. We hit our quantitative goals, like we hit the numbers we were looking for, but I think what's more is that our attendees and flowcasters, like our teams were just like delighted and how the experience was. The chat was on fire like nearly the entire time. We had attendees commenting like how easy it was to join and just like we made it easy for them to come get this education. And that's to me a great event. And when I think about like where we were from the idea to the results, like we overshot all of our goals. So registration, we overshot by probably 60%. And we sourced 400% more pipeline than we had estimated.
Wow.
So, in our world, that's like a huge win.
Yes.
And I'll like hang my hat on that forever. And this year it gets harder because then we have to up level it even more and kind of think of new ways and creative ways to drive pipe. But I think ultimately it really brought our teams together internally around this like shared effort. Our sales team was involved, our partner team was involved. And it was just this really like unifying event for us.
That is awesome. I think it just goes to show that when you put a lot of care and effort into making the event really good, people will actually appreciate it and they'll notice, instead of
Yeah,
just doing it last minute, something very like half put together.
right.
So I'm glad that was the result.
Yeah. I mean, no one wants to sit with like a slide deck and a talking head, right? Like that's just like, yes, it's good sometimes and it's good for certain types of content. But when you're asking someone to come and give you 2 half days,
Right.
you got to keep their attention a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. And what's your biggest challenge you guys are facing right now?
My biggest challenge and our team's biggest challenge is probably keeping our wheels spinning at the pace of the change in our company and the change in the market. So,
Mm,
it's a good problem to have. It's a problem of success, right? Like we are a growing company. That's a great thing. But we are at this like inflection point where we're moving into new markets. We're moving from kind of a more niche provider to a true like enterprise AI platform. And it can be hard to ensure that like our teams are aligned with like where the company is headed and where we are and where our buyers are. And that like all of our campaigns, the individual tactics we're doing, the message is on par and we're able to tell that like one singular story. So I think it's kind of keeping the pulse on all of that and making sure that like everything that's going out is a good representation of where we are today.
yeah, that makes sense. It's changing really fast. Like not just in
Yes.
your industry, I think in general,
Yeah, I
the
mean, the
tech
world's
industry.
just moving so much faster, right? And at a previous company, I had a CEO who told me like 6 months at our company is like 5 years everywhere else. And I feel like at any high growth tech company, any high growth company in general, like that's just what you're experiencing. You have to like reinvent yourself every 6 months. And
Mhm.
that can be both exciting and really hard to do.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where if you stay complacent for too long, things are moving so fast that then competitors can easily catch up, or
Yeah.
like things can
Yeah.
start getting harder.
There's no time to rest, I guess I will say.
Yes. Awesome. Is there any experiment or lesson learned that surprised you?
I think an experiment or something we implemented that did surprise me was our meeting booker. And I talked about this a little bit earlier.
Hmm.
We had this hypothesis that if we just put an opportunity for people to book directly with our sales team, that they would do it. And I don't think any of us realize like how much people want to do that when they're ready. We had all these internal conversations of like, is that being too presumptuous? Like, we don't, we're worried that we're going to look like too forward if all we are allowing them to do is book a time. And there are other calls to action on our site, but ultimately that's the main one. And I think we were all a little surprised by like how quickly people will adopt that and book directly with our team. They're like, skip all the other stuff. We want to get straight to the meeting. And like I said, we reduced our meeting time from the time it was booked to the time it was held from 17 days to 5. And I think just like the amount of time we were able to reduce that by was kind of shocking to me. It really surprised me.
Yeah, and I'm sure the lead quality too is improved by that, because the people that really want to book a meeting right away, it means there's a bit of urgency there, or they're really curious about your product, right?
Yeah, I mean, the conversion rate between not just like the meeting to the, demo, but also from like to the more qualified stages of a life cycle of a deal is even getting better. So it's like the faster we can get those conversations happening and, just really we all approach it as like we're just trying to help them get to what they need and how do we keep the customer at the forefront? And if they're in a hurry, then we're in a hurry, right? We're going to like serve them where they are.
Nice. And I'm curious to get your opinion. This is kind of like a running thing I ask all guests.
Okay.
For content, do you prefer gated or ungated when you're giving value add content?
I will almost always lean towards ungated content. That
Okay.
being said, if you go on our site, there is gated content.
Yeah.
I am a big believer in giving people what they're looking for and allowing them to raise their hand when they're ready. I
Hmm.
think there are certain things, it's a matter of opinion, and you have to fight those battles when you can and the right time. But yeah, I would always say ungated because nobody wants to fill out a form.
It's so true. And we do both, but it's so hard balancing it, right? Because yeah, you
Yeah.
give a lot of value and before you know it, your brand is associated with the value you provide in your industry, right? You almost become like thought leadership. But
Yeah.
I also love having that email because with that email, you can kind of add more value too, like through like email campaigns and touch points and get feedback. So it's hard, right?
Yeah. Well, and like the last thing I want is to fill out the form and then I get my white paper, my report, and someone immediately calls me, right?
Yeah,
I'm
no,
like, that's the worst. I don't
no.
want to call after I've downloaded a pice of content. I want to see the piece of content. So,
Yes, there's ways
yeah,
to do it for sure.
I'm team ungate for sure.
Right on. All right, let's do a quick fire round.
Okay.
What is a marketing resource or book that you recommend?
Um, it's not a book, but I
Hmm.
am really into Carrie Lou Dietrich's Substack right now. She is a hypergrowth like startup advisor. She's previously at Oracle, Atlassian,
Mm,
and she has a very, I think, just good pulse on the industry, and I follow her a lot.
nice. And who's someone who recently influenced your marketing?
Oh, can it be like on my team?
Yes.
Okay. Um, Probably they're my peers, Lauren and Jason. So Lauren is our campaign kind of integrated marketing leader, and Jason is our EMEA leader. And
Hmm.
I really value their opinions and just we spitball a lot of ideas and we're like pros and consing a lot of things. And I really appreciate their perspective.
Nice. That's always good to have too, right?
Yeah.
Different
Oh,
marketing brains,
100%.
different angles that you could kind of get things from, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Advice you'd give your younger self.
What would I tell my younger self? I'd probably tell myself that my career is a marathon and not a sprint. I
So
think I
true.
tell myself to stop and enjoy it more. I think when you're younger and, when I was early on in my career, I was really focused on achievement, right? Like am I doing what's necessary to get recognized, and where's the next promotion coming from? And sometimes the best thing you can do is like whatever's right in front of you, and don't always feel like you have to be achieving something big because it happens naturally. Like you can't force it. And so I think I tell my younger self to relax.
That's good. Love that. And what's something about your company that most people don't know?
um I don't know that many people realize how many accountants we have in our business. So
Hmm.
we claim and we stand by this fact that we are built by experts. We are built by accountants for accountants. And I think it's probably approximately 80% of our employees, from sales to customer success to product, they are former accountants and
Oh,
former
wow.
auditors. And so we intentionally hire people who have felt the burdens of being in those roles, and they can speak to everything that our customers are experiencing. And I think that's a really unique thing for us. I haven't seen it very many other places.
That's a huge advantage because then
Yeah.
everyone's kind of living, breathing the challenges you guys are solving through your
Yes.
product, right? Through your software.
100%. And they're like, and that's why I feel so lucky as a marketer, because we can literally walk to someone in our business and be like, okay, would this resonate with accountants? And they're like,
Mhm.
we would never say it that way. And I'm like, great, fix it for me.
Yeah.
So, I am personally not an accountant. I've spent some time in finance in terms of marketing, but
Mhm.
I just really appreciate that our business, like we put accountants first, and like we really are around just to make their lives better.
Wow, that's amazing. Sonya, this conversation has been really great. I really appreciated your perspectives and telling us about your journey. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
That's it for today's episode of B2B Marketing Unlocked. I hope you found valuable insights to help you grow your brand and scale with confidence. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. Want to unlock the power of podcasting for your business? Visit jonystudios.com. That's JONY studios.com, where we help businesses create profitable podcasts and content that drive growth. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next episode.